Okay, boys, Enzo Maresca beats Jose Mourinho. A big 3 points at the bridge. A win we definitely needed. Going into this game, I was thinking, we'll be a bit conservative. We've looked, somewhat fragile at the back. I thought there wasn't going to be many goals in the game. I did predict, a 1-1. And Benfica definitely had enough chances, and if you go by XG, you could say maybe 1-1 was a fair result. But look, to go here and win with the team we put out as well, I think it is a massive statement. It wasn't the strongest team, everyone on social media could see that when the lineup came out, right? Myself included, was a bit worried, it looked like a conference lineup, to be honest, doesn't it? I mean, if you look at that, does it really scream to you Champions League level? For me, absolutely not. And Benfica's team on paper does look the better team. You have to say, right? But I think in the first half, we gave them some chances. They hit the post. Sanchez, I thought, had a few decent saves. We didn't give them that many chances, but those are the sort of chances in Champions League teams are going to punish you, right? Like, we gave the opportunity to Harry Kane and he punishes us and he scores against us. We were sort of lucky in that respect. It was Benfica. If we're playing against, a Barcelona or a Bayern Munich, PSG, if we give them those half chances, they are just going to score. That's the nature of those players and those teams, right? So definitely wasn't a perfect game. But I think just to reiterate, with the lineup that went out, you have to say, 1-0, clean sheet, another red card. Apparently we just love making it difficult for ourselves. Luckily, it was at the end of the game, but still, João Pedro's going to miss Ajax. And Ajax aren't very good this season. I don't rate their team. I don't rate, the manager particularly much. So I think the Ajax game should be a much easier game than this Benfica one. But João Pedro being out of it is a shame. Maybe we'll see Mark Gay. He didn't feature at all. So it's a bit bizarre, right? So let's get into it. Who played well and who didn't? I thought Ríos for them. Obviously, he got the own goal. He had a very poor performance, and I've seen that. I've watched a few Benfica games, and he's really inconsistent. Right? If he has a good game, he's really good. But when he plays poor, like he did today, he really looks bad. So definitely not a very consistent player. I thought at the back, they quite well. They dealt with us decently. Otamendi and Silva had a sort of decent performance against us. Dedic, or I thought might do a bit more. Sudakov, they didn't end up creating or doing all that much damage to us. I think we managed the game quite well. That we didn't panic. We didn't just pass the ball to them or give them a penalty, get a blatant red card. We didn't do that, although we did get another red card. So I think we're trying to break the consecutive red card record. Hey, we've won it all, right, with Chelsea. So let's see if we can break that record. You never know. Only a couple more games. But Mob have Sanchez as man of the match. I don't know if I'd give him man of the match personally. It was a solid performance, made a few important saves, and we got the clean sheet. So you can't really have too much to go. An 8 out of 10 I think is quite fair. Gusto played okay. Didn't play great when he came on against Brighton. Was probably one of the worst players, right? And the crowd certainly let him know that. But for Gusto, we got a clean sheet. He was involved in the game, so you have to say it was like an average 7, right? He wasn't great, he wasn't poor, and he helps perform with the team. I think it's good. Reece James had a sizable rest. We're going to need him for Liverpool, and Liverpool are just coming off a loss as well. In a game they looked really bad. So it's going to be an interesting game that, Liverpool have been picking up points and winning when they really shouldn't, right? They're getting these late goals, which we also let in late goals. So that might, play a factor in that game. But Liverpool, considering they're top of the table, they really don't look like a top of the table team, to be honest. It's going to be an interesting game when we get closer to that, Who knows? We could beat them. You never know. But anyway, back to Benfica. I thought Chalobah was okay. He actually made a few sort of decent interceptions or headers and then got involved getting forward into the final third. So I thought, his overlapping, he was getting a bit more involved in the play. I thought it was a decent performance. Badiashile, I thought, played better than Chalobah. Out of the two, I would definitely say Badiashile had a good performance, and if he quietly plays like that, he can be that Colwill replacement, But he's got to stay fit, and he's got to stay consistent as well. We know he's a pretty good ball-playing defender. He's one of these modern players who are comfortable on the ball. And in the air, he is decent. He wins a lot of his headers, right? So look, if he can stay fit, we can play him left centre-back, and then whether Chalobah plays, a Champion plays, Fofana plays, Tosin plays, someone's going to have to really fight for that right centre-back spot. But we know we do. Maresca likes a left-footed centre back. It's why he utilised Colwill so much. It's why he wanted a Colwill replacement, and it's because he doesn't like playing with two right-footed centre backs, right? But Cucurella had a typical Cucurella performance, definitely sort of like a 7.5 out of 10, a 7, 8 out of 10, really. Just Mr. Consistent, did the job. Kept them quiet, to be honest, didn't give them too many chances. Minter, obviously, his pace was really, hurting us in the Brighton game, but they certainly don't have a player like that on their team. And I thought Cucurella, quietly went about his business. Caicedo, arguably man of the match for me as well. Just another typical performance by him. You have to say the more experienced players in the squad, which is crazy considering Caicedo's 23 and Cucurella's 27. So not even that old. But these more seasoned players, and Enzo Fernández as well. I thought they actually really turned up. Enzo Maresca has obviously kept playing Fernandez, and Fernandez hasn't been in great form, right? I've made it no secret, and I've called him out when he's played poorly. I think he needed to eat the bench and Andre Santos play over him. But in this game, this is what I want to see from Enzo Fernández. I thought he really dictated that midfield, good leadership qualities. And I thought his long passing, his crossing, his overall build-up play, I thought, this is what I like to see from Enzo Fernández. We need him playing like that in the Champions League. If he can stay consistent and play like that in the Premier League, he's one of the best midfielders in the world for sure. But how often, especially this season, has he just not turned up, or he's looked slow? He's looked way off it. But today, him, Caicedo, Cucurella, really good as well. Neto's probably my man of the match, to be honest. It's either him or Caicedo I would go with. He was a constant menace down that right-hand side. His cutting in on his stronger left foot. He caused the goal. Beautiful cross. And fair play, Garnacho does make those runs onto the end of the balls, right? So, fair play to Garnacho, but I thought Neto, those sort of crosses, if he's putting those in every game, we're going to get opportunities and we're going to get goals. And they struggled to deal with him, right? He was constant menace that whole game. So for me, probably an 8 out of 10. Man of the match I would give him. And we move, right? What I say, I think, was a pretty poor performance, if we're being honest. It wasn't awful. He's quite tidy on the ball, but this guy isn't a Cole Palmer replacement. The board have brought him in, and it's the same with George as well. These players are just not Chelsea quality. They're just not. There's a reason George wanted to go. We were going to put him on loan to Fulham, or Roma wanted to buy him for 20 million. Buonanotte is second choice at Brighton. He's not someone clubs all around Europe are really fighting for, and he came off a below average loan at Leicester. So look, the sporting directors have definitely dealt Maresca a hard hand, and I made a video covering it at Maresca getting in a bit of trouble because he was talking about the signings we made. But you have to back him up here. You just looking at our second string team, it's just not strong enough. And if we get a few more injuries to important players and these guys have to start every game, like say João Pedro now, say he picked up an injury and he's out, who is playing? Delap and João Pedro will be out. Tyreek George is going to have to play up there, or Mark Gay, who hasn't even played since he's come back yet. What's that about? I saw someone on Twitter said, maybe we're going to loan him to Strasbourg or do a straight swap for Omega, and Omega comes in January rather than in the summer because he can't play for 3 clubs, right? So are we just not going to play him even though we've recalled him? It's really weird. I thought he can at least get 5 minutes. He's a striker. And if nothing else, it's just a bit of box presence, right? So I found him just not even playing at all. Quite bizarre. So whether Maresca's going to say anything, you'll probably just say he needs to train harder. But it's confusing me, to be honest. I'm not too sure what that's all about, right? Garnacho, it wasn't a great performance. Yes, he was at the far post and he helped get the own goal from Ríos, right? So he was involved in the goal. But apart from that, he didn't really offer us much. There was a good opportunity where he could have played it to his teammates, right? And he wanted to take a shot from 30 yards. That's something we saw a lot at Manchester United, and I'm sure Maresca, he's not going to let that continue at Chelsea. He's trying to just clip farm almost, I dribble past 2 people, I'm just going to shoot from distance. It's like, no, some of the boys were open, you could have passed it, you could have crossed it. You could have been a bit more involved, right? So you can see he is selfish in that regard. And I thought the players who, when Gittins came on instead of him, Gittins and Garnacho as transfers, you just have to question it. Gittins doesn't look ready at this level. He looks too raw. It looks like he needs at least another season or two on loan, to be honest, if he really wants to play at the top level in Champions League. It's like, yes, he's got some quick, nice feet, but apart from that, he really doesn't offer us much, right? So, look, for me, some of the signings we made this summer were really bizarre and we just didn't strengthen at all. Tyreek George, it was a really poor performance. I think he was one of the worst players on the pitch. I'm not his biggest supporter anyway. I think we should have sold him. He's not Chelsea quality. Certainly not good enough to start at striker in Champions League games, and we saw he just had no impact and didn't really do anything at all. Esteban, when he came on, you can see in the final third, that little, decision-making, concentration is still a bit weak, but he's 18 and he's just moved to a new club, so that's totally understandable. But his dribbling, his first touch, that one, when he just came on and that first touch from really high in the sky and he just took it down and then dribbled past two people, yes, the pass was a bit poor, but look, he's got all the talent there. He's super exciting. He's a threat when he comes off the bench, and of course when he starts, he can either play in the 10 or on the wing. But if Neto's going to play like that right wing, you'd have to say, let's get Esteban in that 10's position because Bonate's not making a case for it. You can play Enzo there, but I think let's play Enzo a bit deeper, especially if we can have Esteban play at the number 10. Gittins, really poor, one of the worst players as well. I don't like the signing. I think we spent way too much. 55 million is crazy money. We could have spent that on a defender or goalkeeper. We don't really need him at left wing, to be honest. And he just doesn't look ready. He needs another loan. And I don't know how much of development he's going to get this season as well, because he's certainly not going to start for us. João Pedro got the red card, didn't play great when he came on, but again, we were sort of seeing out the game. We weren't really looking to be cutthroat and get an extra goal or two. We were kind of just managing the game, keeping possession and making Benfica try and break us down. So, look, he wasn't involved that much in the play. Got a second yellow, was a stupid yellow to get as well, 1 minute before the game ended, just putting his foot way too high. So he misses Ajax. I don't think the Ajax game, missing that, is the end of the world. They're a poor team. Look, they just got smacked to Marseille. They're not playing great this season, and I don't rate their team. It's not Ajax of the previous couple of years where they've had some really talented youngsters. We should be able to beat them, easier than we did to Benfica. And then Joshua Chompiong and Reece James, when it came on, didn't do much, because obviously they only played for 10, 15 minutes max. But they looked after the game. They saw us get a clean sheet. And that's what we're going to need. We're going to need people to come off, especially, with the injury issues we've got. That's why Reece James and certain players like André Santos wasn't even on the bench, right? So, look, it was a weak team, second string, but we got the 3 points. Benfica are a tough game, especially with a new manager bounce with Jose Mourinho. So I think this is a huge result, to be honest. I wasn't predicting us to win. I predicted us to win the last couple games, and we haven't gone out there and done it. We either lost to Brighton, or I thought we might maybe get a point at Old Trafford. The worst United team in how long? I thought, we can get 1 point, surely we can get a draw. No. So, look, we're in poor form, but we move. It's a huge result. And now, looking ahead, obviously we've got Liverpool on Saturday now. So we both played. No one's going to get an extra day's rest because obviously Liverpool played today, right? They just lost. Really poor performance as well. I was trying to keep track of it. I was mainly watching the Chelsea game. But, particularly Frimpong, Wirtz, in really poor form. They didn't play well at all. And Alisson was injured, right? So it's going to be a super interesting game. I don't think Liverpool have been that good this season, and yet they're top of the table, right? Kind of got that jinx, that voodoo. So, we'll cover that when we get closer to it. Overall, the overall take off from this game, what can we take? We got a clean sheet, we got 3 points in a game that I didn't think we would win. So I'm super happy in that regard. Was it an amazing performance? Are you really going to rewatch that game because it was exciting? No, it was quite a boring game, to be honest. But we got the 3 points, so we can't be too upset. All eyes now looking towards Liverpool on the weekend. It's going to be a huge game. Hopefully we can get something from that, right? And we'll see you then. So that's it for today, boys. 3 points up the Chelsea. And if you're still here, drop a like, subscribe, and let me know who was your man of the match as well. So, peace.